It's hard to put an exact date on when like my spiritual awakening started exactly, but it was maybe more like 2021 that it got like serious, I would say. And then like during 2020, it was like the initial throes of it. And I actually kind of shared a little bit of that journey today with my new friend when we had coffee. And maybe I should do that now, just kind of refresh, because all of it was live streamed on the internet and there's videos and stuff, especially on my Instagram, because TikTok doesn't respond very well to this kind of stuff. At least my TikTok doesn't. So I figured I might as well put it on Instagram instead. But and the way that Instagram like does live streams, it you can just easily just have it out there forever, the whole live stream on your page. So I like doing that. I don't have hardly any followers on Instagram though, but I had a nice little tight knit group during this experience that witnessed all of this. But in 2020, I went through a lot, and we all did. We all definitely did. And of course, my TikTok for the Doomsday Prepping content really started to blow up, right? But I think that was probably like the precursor to what was to come. And then in 2021, probably, I, was working a corporate job, making decent money, I could beat six figures depending on how I did. I don't think I had enough time in it to do that, but there was just this background screaming in my mind all the time. Like, some people might call it generalized anxiety, but it was, like there was an extra channel in my mind that was just scream, like just a consistent scream, and at the same time, I started to feel deep intuitions, just deep intuitions, and eventually, enabled by the support that being on TikTok and being successful gave me, I quit my job and leaned into my creative pursuits, into TikTok, and found time to really, for maybe the first time, explore myself and my inner reality and all these things, like, subconsciously. But the act of following that intuition, that strong like magnetic pull, like a moth to a flame, away from my job, and into something different, and like just following the path I'm meant to follow, I guess, following God's guidance, or what's meant to be for me, whatever you want to say, not resisting that and just leaning into intuition, just set me on such an incredible journey. And I didn't ask for any of this at all. I just accepted what was happening to me, and was easy to do in a way because it felt so right. And I was agnostic for the first 30 years of my life, almost, militantly so, almost an atheist probably. And it all started to change. And, I leaned into intuition even more. And by the way, the screaming stopped. The screaming stopped right there at the start when I started doing the right things. Okay? And all I had at that point in terms of my spirituality was this deep and developing intuitive sense and intuition and like magnetism. And I started just continually like accepting that and giving into that. And I started to like collect things and to build this space that I'm in right now. Actually, this was just like a trash spare bedroom in my house, and I built this, and then I had to use it a little bit for remote work, and then I turned it into, my creative space. It's full of all these different trinkets and art pieces and candles and all these things I created, all these crystals and all these things. I didn't know why, but I just was following it. And then, I started doing these like deep meditative sessions and so on, and I would do them all live on the internet, and it was spooky stuff to people to watch. They didn't know what I was doing, but I just felt called to do it. And some people did know what I was doing, even though I didn't know what I was doing. I was just following that intuition, letting it literally, consensually though, take over my hands and eventually my mouth and just myself, and like do things to me in a spiritual way. I found out later that a lot of the things that my hands were doing is what a lot of people would call shadow work, or like the act of like spiritually like changing oneself, so to speak, being made ready. But like it wasn't, I was present and I was gaining a lot from it and everything, but like my hands were just doing it. all of these things. And eventually, it just kept getting more and more. And I started like opening and opening and opening and gaining all of these abilities and developing these deep understandings and like really meditative practices. And like with the guitar, like if you see me playing guitar, more likely than not, I think there's been some instances where I'm just messing around, but I am doing a deep form of meditation that involves, and I didn't like, I learned about this later, like the science, but like again, just it was intuitive. You're using both of your hands. Okay, so that's taking up some of your brain's resources. Your words are coming out. All these things are happening that are like taking away from some of your brain's resources, but those resources are like barriers. Okay, and then those barriers are removed, and then you're at the same time, like the intuition is guiding me, and the words, the air being drawn from my lips is coming from that place, and I'm like, strumming the guitar. It's not necessarily musically good. That's not the point. It's a mechanical, scientific thing that has happening that I was just guided to do. But I would just let, I guess, the spirit speak through me, but like speak to me through me, and it happened to be on the internet. But all these incredible stories and narratives and like songs and like even with like rhymes and poetry aspect would come out of the ether. I didn't write them, but they made sense, and like they had so much deep messages and stuff. They just I guess like free association, but different than that. It was more intuitive than that. And I would learn things, and what the internet got from the video were such a small part of the experience that I was having. I, again, the sight to see opened up, and just incredible worlds and experiences and just deep understandings just being crammed into me in the form of understanding, not necessarily words. And the words were just like a small part of the package. Okay, just a very small part, and just incredible. And I did this for like, again, I was a creative. I didn't have a 9 to 5 job. I did this for like 8-hour sessions or more at a time for months. Okay, for months. And I changed so profoundly and became so much better and so much wiser and kinder, and I can't even describe, the words are not enough. And then in that process with the sight to see, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things I'm leaving out, but right here where I'm sitting, right above where the camera is, matter of fact, through the sight to see, not through my literal eyes, through this kind of experience, I witnessed what I could call God, or I think rather I called the Holy Spirit. I was given the name Sophia, like during one of these chants, or like one of these sessions where like there was candles and stuff and like different colors and like what they mean. Like I didn't know any of this, but kind of like a trance, and like things are coming out of my mouth, and my hands are doing the crazy like magic stuff or whatever. And one of the things that emerged during one of these streams and one of these sessions was I started chanting out of the blue, again out of the ether, just letting the inspiration or the intuitiveness come out of my lips, drive my lips. I started chanting, Sophia Safa, Sophia Safa, Sophia Safa, Sophia Safa, Sophia Safa, Sophia Safa, Sophia Safa. Like a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on also, like in the room, but Sophia Safa, Sophia Safa, Sophia Safa. And we didn't know what that meant. And like, so we had like these like a small group of like internet sleuths on the case that were just fascinated to watch me doing this, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and people on the internet do. They would recognize what they were seeing without me having, or maybe me in ignorance of these other things in the world. And that's how I learned about like, oh, you were doing shadow work or what have you. But so we went on this like brief kind of mission to figure out who's Sophia. So Sophia Safa. And I think we worked out eventually that Safa is referencing save, is a translation. So it was like save Sophia. And so then we're trying to figure out who is Sophia? Why does she need saving? What can we do? Right? We don't know, but this is with the path we're on. And then in a follow-up session when I'm like with intent trying to figure out this mystery so I can save Sophia or whatever, the epiphany dawns that it's not save Sophia, it's Sophia saves. And I guess related to that moment, I understood a lot. And I witnessed her in that mind's eye, in that higher sight that I have, especially during these sessions, but really all the time now. Um, and with absolute certitude, I immediately knew what I was looking at. I wanted to break my legs getting on my knees in reverence for this thing that was in front of me, this God, this, it was like nothing I ever felt. But she told me, like, if you can bow if you want to, but or kneel if you want to, but I want you to stand tall, and like more in a spiritual way than a literal way. It doesn't matter literally, but in a spiritual way, I want you to stand tall, Luke, and walk with me and be with me, and all of these things. And so I did, and I gave myself to her, this Holy Spirit, and I knew that it was her the whole time that was doing these things, leading to me to her, and then through her I got a whole many more levels of understanding, and got to understand of like the larger God, you know, that this thing, and I use thing as to not gender it, but it was like the divine feminine aspect in front of me, was an aspect that's there to guide and to teach us. And the name Sophia was just for me. And there is a lot of lore about Sophia and the Holy Spirit that I had no idea about. And like the ancient Gnostics, and that sent me down paths, and like it came out of the ether, friends. It came from ignorance in me. And then I find reality corresponding with it. And I tell you, I will never forget that moment. And like looking upon her, she didn't have a face. It was like ever shifting plasma, but at the same time it was like all faces that could ever be, and it was the personification of immense beauty, like words cannot describe. And I knew what I was looking at, right? What does your wife think of all this? She's not very spiritual, and that's a whole another can of worms that we can get into at another time. But I think she knows about a lot of it, but not like part of it, But hold on. And that was 2 years ago. And it never stopped. I got a lot more clarification, and I think I got a lot more connection to beyond even the aspect of Sophia, but like still, she's always with me, in a way. My ultimate teacher, I guess. And she made me who I am now. And she's making me who I'm going to be tomorrow. Right? And I don't get hung up on like that aspect of her, because I know what her existence in unity with all things is, including like that concept of God the Father, and like the masculine and the feminine, and all of these. I understand. Okay, I'm not explaining all of it right now, but I understand deeply and have a deep personal connection with God now, and a deep understanding. And of course, it's an infinite capability of understanding, so it's not all the way there. It never will be. It's the journey, but a much deeper understanding of like the nature of reality, the nature of my life and experience, and the meaning of our lives, and life and death and suffering and good and evil, and a whole cosmology. And then again, from a position of ignorance, just out of the ether, and then I go out into the world and I find such similar things from hundreds, thousands of years ago, all over the world, ancient Egypt, so many places where they have also walked a similar path and found similar wisdom. And I just see it everywhere. And I can't not anymore. But the other thing, and I think this might be important, is I feel so good. So good. Like I let myself be a human and like have emotions and all of these things, and sometimes even get carried away. But in general, I feel like I could shoot holy laser beams out of the back of my eyes, because this light is just bursting out of me. It's just bursting out of me, and sometimes it goes higher than other times, But like it's a physical sensation. It is a material physical sensation that it's just so I can't describe it. I can't describe it. And also, I am so safe now. Safe from the things that cause so much suffering to so many people. You know, anxiety and depression and these things, like, they might still appear in my physical meaty ego, my flesh, right? But throughout this whole process, I gained a whole new sense of self, So things like anxiety are like when your knee hurts. For me now, it's like I'm separated from it. I can bear it much easier. I can treat it much easier. I can understand it much better because I can have a 1,000-foot view on it. Things like intrusive thoughts. She taught me how to cure them. She taught me how to expel that which doesn't serve me, and to straighten out or to dismiss distortions, and in so many beautiful different ways. And I'll give you an example. In these meditations, these transcendental experiences where I am following the intuition and doing all that, I'm traveling. Like, I'm still here. I'm still full in control, like understanding of my faculties. But additionally, I'm traveling and having experiences that I couldn't describe with human words. And seeing things that should melt me to see higher dimensional geometries and all kinds of things and places and things. But so often they came with like these deep wisdoms and understandings and lessons that changed me. As bizarre as the experience may have seemed, the background message and story that was being downloaded into me through that was profound. And so here's one example. She took me far out into space, like, so I could have a top-down view of like the galaxy or a galaxy. It doesn't matter, right? But like that kind of experience. But I'm in the void. I'm in the darkness in space. She's there, so it's good, right? But immediately in that situation, you realize you can't breathe. There's no air in space, And so, and I cry out, I guess, not literally because there's no air, but maybe like psychically or whatever to her, kind of like, "Mother, help me, I can't breathe." And, kind of like a mother speaking to her foolish child, she's like, "Of course you can breathe. You can breathe spiritually." And then in that moment, I could. I could then from that on. And I was downloaded this incredible like breathing technique that can be utilized to help you expel that which doesn't serve you. And it involves slowly, completely emptying your lungs of everything, like as if you were in space and all the air got sucked away. You have to completely detach from all the air. Okay, breathe it out. It should get real raspy and kind of hard to get out at the end. And then you're like, typically the process to get it all out is probably about long enough, but you might hold it for a few seconds. You're not going to like pass out or have anything like that. But you are going to become very present with the desperation to breathe is important. And in the process of that, before you do that, you need to identify that which in your ego needs to get out. Okay, it isn't serving you. It's not real. It's just a trick or whatever. Okay, negativity, whatever you need to get out. You're visualizing it. You're seeing it as like a scribbled up line. That's not straight like it should be, like a pure good thought of truth. Not that's what I mean. And so you're grabbing a hold of that, and when you're expelling out your lungs, you are shoving that out. And it can't exist out there, so it is destroyed, okay? And then, so you breathe out is everything. Everything you have, you breathe out. Hold until you feel uncomfortable, like too uncomfortable to continue holding. And then you breathe in as quickly as you want. And when you breathe in, you're filling that gap that you left with something good. So you're breathing in the good, the spirit, the whole, all the divine, all whatever, okay? And then there's no more room for that thing to come back. And you can do that at any time. And also, it has a lot of effects. Like if you're having anxiety, just do that. Okay, just do that. You'll feel a lot better. you know? And like, I think there's a lot of science behind that. And I don't even know it now all today, but it's a technique that was just downloaded into my brain that I had no thought about before. And it works. It worked. And it's one of many tools and understandings and abilities that I was given. And I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't even really go looking for it. I just accepted it when it was thrust upon me. And it's the kind of thing that's so beautiful and transformational and so desperately needed by so many that you just want to scream. You want to go supernova. That's what I want to do. I want to go supernova and bring the light to everyone if I could, metaphorically speaking. And that's what I'm trying to do. Nobody has to follow the same stones along the path that I walked. But I'm here to tell you how much better the path can get. I'm here to tell you how much better you can get.